Hi fellow Django developers, Hezekiah here from alwaysdjango.com, where we discuss interesting Django topics that helps you grow, improve as a Django developer. If that sounds interesting, like, share, subscribe, share this video with anyone that can find this video interesting, guys. So a side note here, I'm recording in the night. I was lazy enough not to record in the day. But thinking about it, I was like, it's probably better because there is no noise. The construction around me is off, so is more quiet, so you not get to hear the like normal background noise you get to hear from the videos. So if you like it, guys, just tell me to continue recording in the night. As in, obviously I think it's better to record in the night. Let's get into it. So today we are going to discuss how to implement custom middlewares in Django, right? Like always, we have an article here on alwaysdjango.com. I'll leave a link to it in the description so that you can go check it out. So what are middlewares? Middlewares are systems or softwares that intersect the request and response cycle of a system to improve its process activity and improve its performance. In Django applications, middleware stand as the connective tissue between the HTTP request and the HTTP response process. During a normal request and response cycle in Django, when a request is sent to our server, it is processed, verified, and handled. During the processing stage, there are some functionalities that we get to repeat always. With middlewares, we could write code that receive our request before they get to the request handling methods. So what I'm trying to say here is that middlewares are they're like a security gate, right? They are like a gate, and maybe we have a security guy there. We tell the security guy this when a request is coming in with this, and this, you let it in. If it does not have this, don't let it in. So that's just what middlewares are. They stand in between the request and the server, and then the response between the server, the response, and the client, and between the request, the server, and the response, right? So that's just what middleware, like their name imply, they stay in the middle, right? So how to implement custom middlewares in Django. Steps to implement custom middleware in Django. Say the first step, you say create a Python file to house your middlewares, right? So already here, guys, I have a very simple Django application here. A very simple Django application here where we simply return the this index.html file. We simply return this index.html file to the server. We simply return this simple index.html file which says Django middlewares. So here, if we reload Django middleware, so first step we say create a Python file to house your middlewares. Second step we say create the middleware class. Third step we say add the middlewares to your setting.py file. Fourth one I say implement required functionalities to your middleware class. So the first step, let's create our middleware. I have a middlewares.py file here. So on my root project folder, I just created the middlewares.py file here, which is this. Is obviously empty. I have nothing in it already. So the second step is say create the middleware class. So our middleware class, a middleware class is the class that runs when we run the middleware. So class, let's say request, because we are going to make a middleware that prints out the current time of the request. Very simple and basic, not necessarily useful, but that can do. So at the third step, we say add the middleware to your settings.py file. So obviously Django does not know about this file. It does not know this file as a middleware, nothing. So to tell Django about this middleware file, we'll go to the settings.py file. This is where in the middlewares list, this is where you have all your middlewares for your application, right? So this is obviously the Django default middlewares, security, section, authentication. So another note here, guys, it's very important, the arrangement of these middlewares, right? If a middleware is for instance, the authentication middleware is dependent on the section middleware of the Django authentication depends on the Django section to function, right? So for you to, if a middleware depends on another middleware, then that middleware, independent middleware, if you can say that, you can call it that. The independent middleware needs to run before the dependent middleware. So if a request, let's say a request is coming in from here, down here, from up here to here, a request is coming in like this, right? When it comes here, it needs to run this section middleware first before it gets to the authentication. If the authentication middleware is before the section middleware, then the dependency the authentication middleware has on the section middleware will make the authentication middleware not run. There is an exception and everything. So the order of arrangement of your middlewares are very, very important. While creating your own custom middlewares, if your middlewares are dependent on any other Django middleware or any other middleware you have, you should make sure that the independent middleware runs before the dependent middlewares, guys. That's very, very important. So for our middleware, to add your middleware into your Django application middlewares, you come to the settings.py file in the middlewares list. You come here, add a link to the middleware, a path link to the middleware. So in between, in the strings, you say middlewares dot, and that's we are going to this middleware file. Then this is the middleware class. Copy this, let's come here and paste it. So we have successfully added this file, this class, as a middleware in this Django application. You can see it's erroring out here because we have some things we have to implement. So the first step will be, for you to have a middleware in Django, you need for you to have a middleware class for your Django applications, you need two methods. The first one is the Dunder, that's the Django, the Python magic method, two Python magic methods, Dunder methods. That's the init and the core. The Dunder init and the Dunder core. That's the underscore, if you can call it that. So let's go here to our middleware class. Let's implement this. I'll tell you what the importance of this methods. This is the init. Let's implement the core, right? So the init method, the init magic method in our Django middleware runs immediately we run the server. I use erroring out right now. That's cool. We'll resolve it. So immediately we on our server, right? So immediately we write the python manage.py run server, right? Immediately our server is on, this init method runs. So the use of this init method, we use it to get access to the get response method that we can use to return our request, our request and response and everything. So we'll look at it very soon. So this core method is what runs in our middleware. So when our middleware, a request comes in, it will go to our browser, for instance, and reload. Of course, if we reload now, we'll have an error. So when we reload, when we send a request to this middleware, it comes here, runs this. When it gets to our middleware, it is this core method that runs, right? So it's the most important, is obviously is the most important method in our middleware class, right? So here we need the get response. So with the get response, we say self.response is equal to get response. Then we say request here. If I can be fast enough. So we say the request is equal to self.get response. Let me call this get response. Well, let me call this get response. Then we'll pass in our request. Our request here, then we return request. So let's print out, let's test what we are saying. Let me print out print server is running here. Let me print server is running here. Let me print request is sent. Request is sent. Let me off our. So let's start our server again. I've started the server. So here we see the server is running. The server is running, which is what we printed out in the init method, which indicates that our server is running because this init method, because the request came in, like the middleware has started and the init method is called. So when we go to our browser, reload, refresh, this is printed out. We go to our console, we can see the request is sent. When we come to this call method, because the request was sent in, request is sent in, it came here, then came to this place, recognized our class method, came here and called our class method and printed out this, right? So this is really it, guys. So there are other methods you can have in your middleware class. One of them is the process view. The process view, this is called just before the view function is called, right? The request, the first argument is the request, the second argument is the view function, a reference variable to the view function to be executed or called, right? The view argument, this is the argument to the view function. View quags, this is the keyword arguments to the view function. So you can come here and have the process view. We text in the request, the view function, view args, view keyword arguments, keyword args. Then let's add our args and keyword arguments. Let's print here view function is called, right? So this method runs immediately before we call our view function. So before, when a request comes in, it calls this, then immediately before it calls this view function here, it runs this process view. So if we reload here, come over to this phase, you see the request is started because this called first, then our view function is called because this came second. Then the next one should be the process exception. This runs when this only execute if and only when the view function raises an exception. If the view function raises an exception, this is when this function of our middleware runs. Then the process template response. This method is used when our view method returns a render. That's the Django shortcut the render method. That is when this method called the process template response, obviously because you have a template, right? And the Django shortcut the render is used for a template. Then lastly here we have simple custom Django middleware. Is the request timer middleware just used to print. So let's print the time. Let's just console out the time for a request. So when a request comes in, we want to say print time for the request is let's add this time zone dot now. The time zone should be from Django. So from Django dot utils import time zone. Or you can use the Python datetime anywhere you want. So we just use, so when we go to our browser, we reload, it just comes to our console, prints out the correct time of our request, just to print out the time of our request. That's what this middleware does for us right now. It's obviously not important, it's obviously not something you want to implement, but we just use this for learning. So this is it, guys. This is how you implement Django middlewares in your application. If you have any questions, any arguments, you can leave them in the comment section. I'll come back to answer you. So like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. Have a very nice day. Thank you. Peace.